You are a thought system. It's hard to think of God as a thought system, but you must, since you are a thought system. Then you need but realize that God would have to be a whole thought system, and you'll have no problem with your own transformation.
Yes.
This is what we're speaking of in chapter 11. That each thought system is absolutely, apparently intact with itself, and there's no communication between the two, because one is disruption or projection, and the other is wholeness and extension. That's how simple what's happening to you really is. You are literally instructing your own associate thoughts in a higher range of harmony. That's how simple it really is. It's happening. It's interesting that chromosomally you're using the vehicle of your own, what you call reproduction or productive associations with yourself to inform yourself of your own new relationship with yourself.
Wow.
It's astonishing. That's the transformation of the body. Stay up high with this. I'm going to reduce this now. Be quiet. You are, and this will be, does this occur in chapter 11? Yes. Written into chapter 11 then in this choice of thought systems, although there really is no choice, will be indications of the light of you becoming the great reassociation. I'll read that to you. This is chapter 11. How simple then it is. One of them is not true. All we're directing your mind to is the certainty of unity or singularity or a single wholeness, regardless of what your intent to be was. This has to lead us to your authority problem, where really what this will say, this is chapter 11, what it'll say is that you have constructed God rather than allowing God to construct you. That's really how very, very simple this is. Then you can look at whether one of you is wrong, because certainly the idea of God, be it you or your father, is intact somewhere in your own mind. Wow, what an idea. Would have to be. The solution, the total solution is obviously very simple. Be wrong. It would make absolutely no difference in what manner you're wrong or what you're wrong about. Okay. If God is really only happiness, harmony, and heaven. Happiness, harmony, and heaven are 3 H's. So let that come true in your own mind. And you will demonstrate it by the extension of your own refined to brightness memory thought form association, which is exactly what you're doing right now in this play that you guys are performing at a very high level, this passion play of dedication to a reunion with God, if you want to call it that, since obviously you thought you were separated. Then this becomes a glorious revival or reunion of your individual and consort associate minds. Isn't that lovely? So we have then the reunion. Yes, join with me in the reunion of your minds by the simple statement of the I have not left home. See what you're doing now with your mind? I am not a body, I am free. God created me. I am not my own source, but part of the total source that everything is. I will not continue to define myself in my temporal time associations, but will release the necessity for previous self-identity. I know that this sounds peculiar in words, but this is precisely what you're doing with your own mind. Because, well, you may presume that you are static. Actually, the thought forms of your conglomerate association are changing each moment and reassociating each moment in a total identity of yourself in the, what you would call the concepts of space-time association. all you had to do was really give a total redirection of yourself to yourself. You could not become light. If you define light as an aspect of total consciousness in a happy demonstration of the security of your mind and the fullness of your uncompromising relationship. Okay. That, miracle workers, is the miracle. The at one month of your own cellular association with yourself. Remember that genetically, from your Bethlehem, which you call your black hole, you're in a continual condition, okay, of an expression of thought form association in dim light. Quite literally, a chaotic identity held for a moment in time only to collapse on the pressure of the necessity for unity, which is imperative in your own associations. Really, all you're doing is demonstrating the harmony of your own mind. What associates with that then in the universe? Everything, because harmony is what the universe is. But how important your own individual association. If you will see that your body is literally that universal association, it cannot not be. As you identify it, then you must look at it as, the best term would be, neutral. That is, quite literally, it has no identity of own, but only a combination of each form in its separation, attempting to hold itself in a, what you would term species identification, or a harmony within its own reach of where it is with itself in its time-dimensional association. You can't stop yourself from doing that. But obviously, since your mind now has a whole identity with itself, that is, it has asked the question, what am I of itself? All right. The final step must be the certainty that it is whole mind, or it couldn't ask the question. And that's really all that we're leading you to do. Sure. How crucial then to see that this is your mind, right? And the thought system with which you identify yourself with, okay, is both whole and split simultaneously. This is as close as we can take you to a holy instant. That is, each instance says that since there is only one mind, all right, that mind is either totally unreal and chaotic, or it's totally whole. Okay. One or the other is not so. Obviously, perception is nothing but the idea of choice, isn't it? Yeah. But how important then perception or choice was to you to determine the inevitable outcome of this apparent disassociation? Okay. Sure. So what? Are you going to continue to exercise your associate limited authority with your own projections or miscreations and identify them through the auspices of sequential time? Or will you come to know, and this is important, this is Jesus Christ of Nazareth teaching out of time to you in the Course in Miracles, that thought form, or what you call in time sequential time, is impossible, since all associations must be happening all the time if there is a whole creator. All right? Okay. One, an idea never leaves its source. Therefore, you can construct a limited association of yourself in time and sequence it to your own apparent termination based on the limited definition you have of yourself within your genetic associations. But the idea of annihilation is reserved only for split mind, because in its own definition, it creates a tension through the necessity for self-identification, which must finally be relieved, because the tension itself is best defined as fear, or anxiety, or physically in sickness and death, in a determination to demonstrate a local association of perceptual sequential time. Obviously impossible. No. Impossible why? Because we are saying so in consort.
Yes.
We have already seen in our mind the alternative to this. Okay. Why else have we gathered here then in a declaration of our own whole mind thought form association?
Yes.
Be happy.
Yes.
This will define itself finally as what? The end of time.
Yes.
Both the beginning and the end of time, if time was necessary.
Yes.
Was time necessary? Only if you declare within your own perceptual associations that it was. But you cannot make time real. Because you are forever. These are the direct teachings of Mastermind Jesus. Anything that is not forever is not real. Therefore, none of your perceptual associations have any value except contained within your own nutshell, within your own association with yourself and your determination to forget that you are the cause of this. Okay? The introduction of yourself to yourself is obviously the end of time. The introduction of A Course in Miracles, or the idea of the possibility of death turning to life, is when death turned to life. And that was the principle of atonement, which was introduced at the time of the illusionary schism. All right, do you understand me? Now you can try to question that in your perceptual mind, but obviously it's not going to serve any purpose, because your perceptual mind is determined to hold on to some sort of sequential self-identity.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the impossible situation of which we speak, and we mean literally impossible.
Yeah.
That being said, don't question this association, what I am saying to you, what Jesus declares to you in your own perceptual mind, but rather accept it as true. Since the admonition that an idea never leaves its source must be inevitably true, because everything is everything. The only voice you have never wanted to hear up until this moment is the voice of God.
Yes.
Quite literally, your own reassociation with yourself.
Yes.
For goodness sake. To a self-identified mind, the idea of whole mind is inane, is crazy, is not possible. Okay? Because the idea of God, a wholeness, has to be a threat to it within its own perceptual associations. This cannot not be so. Jesus in the Course identifies the term ego as identifying Homo sapien, or a split mind. Okay, a mind coming to its own realization. Okay, but obviously either God or everything, okay, or the split mind, which is the separate identity contained within itself, is insane. If you will examine the evidence on both sides fairly, you will realize that at the very least this must be true. Why? Because neither God or wholeness, which is in your mind, nor the split mind, which you are identifying yourself with, proposes a partial thought system. Why? A partiality thought system is impossible. Every idea that you ever have must be whole at the time you have it, regardless of the evidence on which it is based, or it could not be identified as you.
Right.
But look how chaotic I don't mean that I got into this. I'm trying to read this and I'm having a problem. I'll do it once more for them. Okay. Neither God nor the ego proposes a partial thought system. Because whatever combination of thought forms you have at any moment in temporal association is literally all that there is. There is nothing but that. Oh, wow. Okay. Each is internally, isn't isn't this lovely? Consistent.
Yes.
But they are diametrically opposed in all respects, so that partial allegiance to either is literally impossible. There is finally no such thing as partiality because thought is singular. Okay? In fact, the idea of partiality is what partiality is. That being the case, we want you to identify with what you might term total partiality. You understand? Be totally partial to God through the power of your own limited mind, okay? And your partiality will become whole in your own association with yourself. What? Each is internally consistent, but they are diametrically exactly the opposite in every single respect. What? One of them is dedicated to the constancy of time or alterations, the other to the constancy of a single whole God or love. All right? But isn't this joyous to discover that you are being told this now within your own thought form association? Your tendency to belittle what this says is only an indication of your authority problem, your determination to continue to express yourself in your own limited time association. But listen, remember too that their results are as different as their foundations. And their fundamentally irreconcilable natures cannot be reconciled by vacillations between them. Okay? You can't pretend that you have solved the problem by bringing previous thought forms into the association. Each time you declare yourself whole in partiality, you are whole in partiality, which is what the unreality is. Okay? Why is this so? The necessity to reconcile is not real. I know, but this is a big bite here. That is literally the necessity for you to learn this is not so. Since you have declared it to be a necessity, we are offering your own whole mind as an alternative to the authority, the direction you have given yourself in your own projection of thought form. All right? All right? Nothing alive is fatherless, for life is creation. Once more, nothing alive is fatherless, for life is creation. That is, life is literally the Father creating himself. Yes. Okay? For life is creation. Therefore, your decision is always an answer to the question, who is my Father? What is my source? Where did I come from? And you will be faithful to the Father that you choose. Yes. When Jesus talks about this in the Course, he says you literally believe that you have usurped the power of the universe, that you have dethroned God and killed him. I'm going to do this for you in a particular religious vernacular. In a determination to identify yourself separate from what you really are in your own mind. Yet, what would you say to someone who believed this question really involved conflict? Okay? If you make the no mind, okay, the split mind, how can the split mind have made you? One or the other cannot be true. Yet, since thought is singular, in reality, the Son makes the Father as the Father makes the Son. What you're saying to me with the split mind is that I can project or miscreate thoughts from my own mind and be in conflict with myself. Yes. That's literally insane and impossible. That's what this says, isn't it? Okay. What? The authority problem, then, is still the only source of conflict because the ego or the no mind was made out of the wish of God's Son, okay, to father him. Okay, the ego then is nothing more than a delusional system in which you think you make your own father. Okay, make no mistake about this. Jesus calls this idolatry. You kick out the thought form from your own mind and honor it to the extent that it keeps you in balance with your own mis-self-identity. You understand? Yes. Everything then becomes an idol to your own mind in an attempt to hold on to your limited perceptual relationship with yourself. Okay. Make no mistake about this. I know that it sounds crazy when it is stated with perfect honesty. But the no mind never looks on what it does with absolute perfect honesty. If it did, it would immediately spring into heaven. Huh? It has to look at its own false associations with itself. That's what it's afraid to do. That's the idea. What? It has assumed the guilt, I'm using the word guilt here in its broadest sense, of self-identity. Okay? It is protecting itself in its previous thought form associations with itself, which come finally from nowhere, do they? Why? Because they are contained in the idea of time or separation. Okay? Yet, that is its insane premise, which is carefully hidden in the dark cornerstone of its thought system. This is the whole idea of the parting of the veil. This is the moment that you must finally come to in your own congruent mind association. This is the whole idea of bringing what you call sequential thought, which is nothing but an avoidance of this moment, into the moment when the schism actually occurred. That would have to be now, wouldn't it, in this association of the thought form. Okay? And either the no mind, the ego, your self-identity, which you make, is your father, or what? Or its whole thought system cannot stand and will not stand. What are we speaking of? The point of the transformation of your individual associate minds that you are undergoing right now in this constabulacy, in this association with yourself and your own thought forms that you have constructed in time to bring you to the truth of you. Okay? This is lovely. Why? You make by projection, human mind, but God creates by extension. The cornerstone of God's creation is you. What a lovely sentence. There's some lovely ideas here. The cornerstone of God's creation is you. What? His thought system is light. Therefore, you are light. In perception, a whole thought form is a reassociation of all of the aspects of consciousness, okay, which split off into ideas and limited speed associations, which Jesus in the Course calls the great rays, all right? Yet is each one contained in the whole thought form identity, no matter how deep the apparent darkness into which you are determined to identify yourself. That's what this will say, probably. The cornerstone of God. He says it better. The cornerstone of God's creation is you. What? His thought system is light. Remember, the rays that are there unseen. Now, remember the rays that are there unseen. Remember that your static condition with yourself, identified by the body-mind, to hold you in objective time is absolutely not real. And to remember in this sense means to reaffiliate with later thought forms contained within the fabric of your time. That's what's happening here, and is being demonstrated by the miracle of what? Physical resurrection. You see, nothing really then could stop you each moment from doing a total osmosis, a total metamorphosis, a passing from your own limited self to your own whole self. And indeed, that's actually what's occurring each moment as you do this quantum leap to light, isn't it? That's what's happening. Okay. The more that you approach the center of his thought system, and here is an acknowledgement that what? God is a thought system.
Yeah.
A whole thought system. But since you are coming from the aspects or degrees or intervals of associate time, you need bring your whole thought system together. All right? That's what this says. Okay. The more you approach the center of his thought system, what happens? The clearer the light becomes. The closer you come to the no-mind's thought system, the darker and more obscure becomes the way. Why? You have not activated the potential, okay, the dark potential of slow time. That is, if you look at it as coming from the black hole of misassociation. When Jesus describes this in the Course, it says, you did everything you could to escape the light. You could call that the black hole. But there is no such thing as potential. And at the time that potential reaches a critical mass of density, it automatically becomes whole light, or becomes a quasar of reassociation. Isn't that something? Okay, the closer you come to the no-mind's thought system, the darker and more obscure becomes the way. This is the dark night of the soul as you try to bring your light into this Gethsemane, into this association, and demand recognition of yourself in your limited potential identity. This is the pain that you feel that you call sacrifice in coming to your own light. You're constantly being presented in your own genetic thought form the entire history of the schism. You understand?
Yeah.
In your own microcosm is all of the history of man since the beginning of time. Okay, so it appears to be confronting you because each time you try to hold your static association, this is literally what the atonement is, you feel the pressure of either the association of the whole thought form or the partial thought form that is directing you to stay in time and die.
Yeah.
Wow, isn't that something? Yet even the little spark in your mind is enough to lighten it. Now, bring this light fearlessly with you and bravely hold it up to the foundation of the no-mind's thought system. This is one of the few times when Jesus uses the word, you got to be brave about this. This is nothing but bringing yourself to the altar of death and doing a confrontation with your own association with yourself rather than projecting yourself into a nursing home 20 or 30 years from now, or causing the death of your projected associations in order to protect your own misconceptions in space-time. Isn't this so? This is what it says. Bring this light fearlessly with you and bravely hold it up to the foundation of the no-mind's thought system. Be willing to judge it with perfect honesty. Why don't you just take a look at the situation that you're actually in here and stop defending your ideas of pain and greed and sickness and limitation and death with the inevitability of the perfection of God mind, of love and unity and harmony and happiness. Listen, all this is really saying is they are positively, diametrically incompatible. How simple then is salvation. Wow. Bring this light fearlessly with you and bravely hold it up to the foundation of the ego thought system. Be willing to judge it with perfect honesty. Listen to the thought form associations of the world that you have projected to protect your identity so that you can see the complete insanity of an attempt to hold in static time. Wow. Open the dark cornerstone of terror on which it rests and bring it out into the light. Don't be afraid. Stand up. Be counted. Make a declaration that heaven is real, that this association coming to you, this Course in Miracles that's coming to you from out of time is true.
Yes.
The truth is true and nothing else is true, and that by the assertion of your whole association with yourself, you will spring into the light with the certainty that you are directing yourself to yourself.
Yes.
All right? And that must be so.
Yeah.
Be willing to judge it with perfect honesty. Open the dark cornerstone of terror on which it rests in. Bring it out in the open. There will you see what? That it rests on meaninglessness, and that everything of which you have been afraid was based on nothing.
Yes.
You new minds that we're so grateful for now, that are springing into light in what Jesus defines as the circle of atonement, have simply discovered through your own revelatory reassociation that this is literally not real.
Yes.
It doesn't make any difference what the perceptual mind of your previous associations of darkness then presents to you in your previous determination to keep your self-identity. You simply look right at him and bravely declare, The world is not real.
Yes.
I am going home to my Father. I have never left home.
Yes.
He looks at you in total astonishment, okay? He sees the reflection of your whole miracle mind, which has actually created him. He responds in a harmony reassociation of his former dedication to death, and together you spring into the eternity which you had never left.
Yes.
Say amen. Excuse me. Got myself caught up there. Minds are becoming so bright with these lovely words coming from Jesus directly to you. Here's a lovely sentence for you. Then you will see that it rests on meaninglessness, and that everything of which you had been afraid was based on nothing. Here's the Master speaking. My brother, you are part of God and part of me. You could, with your illuminate mind now, turn to the guy next to you and say, my brother, you are a part of God and a part of me. Okay. When you have at last looked at your own thought system, at the ego's foundation, without shrinking, you will also have looked upon your own. I come to you from our Father to offer you everything again. This is an indication that he's always coming, and that he came and you didn't hear him in the first place. This is the whole idea of the second coming. Each moment I come to offer it to you again totally. Each moment in time you either totally reject it or totally accept it and spring into heaven and are gone from here, since this was only your own creation in your own sleeping mind anyway, wasn't it? Okay. Do not, here's an admonition, do not refuse it in order to keep a dark cornerstone hidden, for its protection will positively not save you and cannot save you. I give you the lamp and I will go with you. You will not take this journey alone. I will lead you to your true Father who hath need of you as I have. You see that? God needs his Son just as much as his Son needs his Father. What a lovely idea. Wow. Will you not answer the call of love and joy? And you have said yes. Yes. In this association with myself, where there is nothing outside of me, in my own dream, I will answer this call that has been directed to me. How is this call being made? Somewhere in my own limited associations, I have to have seen the futility of my own self-creation.
Yes.
I ask for help by various associations of thought form, which you call human condition or ideas, to give me assistance, but I have come to know the futility of my determination to be separate from eternity.
Yes.
Okay? The wider my range of help, quite literally, the more I admit that the problem is not solvable. All right? The higher the range of relief I get from my own whole mind out of time. Isn't that nice to know?
Yes.
It matters not the predicament in which I identify myself, but rather the fervency with which I seek relief, having determined that there is no relief within my perceptual associations.
Yes.
We call that a bottom.
Yes.
What am I doing? I'm forcing you to look at your bottom all the time. This is exactly what this says. Look at the thought system that you have constructed apparently about you, projected from you, and pretend to participate in, and see the futility of the continuation of it. There's no sense in projecting the inevitable death that is all around you out from you by killing your brother in his misidentity and prolonging your own time in space and time. But finally, if you care to look at it, your alternative has always been to hold yourself in the tension of time and then annihilate yourself by your own misdefinition. Obviously, that's insane and it will not work. Okay. You have then what? Gathered together in your individual dreams of chaos and death into a reassociation of a whole, true, illusionary, bright, perceptual identity, which is the harmony of God association. That's how simple this is. So we say to you, welcome home. Who are we? All of you out of time. All of you individually and in totality in the soul recognition of your great ray association, for goodness sake. Now, what's been given you is the capacity in this transformation of your cellular association to look directly at your problem each moment and reject it. Okay? Finally, in this whole new body association, you are literally the savior of the world, or the bright one who carries this message into the previous chaotic association. You are the only living Son of God. God has but one Son, and it is you, and you are the savior of the world. You are the savior of the misconstructions of your former limited mind, of your own thought forms. You are not responsible for them if you were created in wholeness by God. You are responsible for them through the authority of the declaration of your own perceptual time mind. How simple then is the solution? Be responsible to God rather than your own identity. These are the direct and certain teachings of all whole minds, most particularly Jesus Christ of Nazareth 2 years ago. If you will look at the New Testament now from these directions and see the associations with the Course in Miracles, you will see how uncompromising all whole minds are in the association of the idea of partiality or time and eternity, which must be what whole mind is. Isn't that nice? This then is your reassociation, and as I am here now with you in light, speaking to you from out of time into the direction of your new final great ray of association, at what Jesus terms the borderline, okay, or literally the end of time. Okay. What must you do in order to be at the end of time? Okay. Reverse temporal order. Okay. See yourself at the beginning of the time, which was also the end.
Yes.
That's the point where we just spoke of, where you have buried in deep fear the whole idea of the possibility that the schism could have occurred. For just a moment, Jesus directs you in the Course. These two thought systems lay together. Jesus talks about this in the Course. Now, at this point, you make a decision in your own perceptual mind whether to continue in time because of your fear of wholeness, okay, or, dear prodigal son, to understand that God knows not of your fear and welcomes you with the abundance of his whole mind. You cannot dissipate the power of God, distracted son. You are whole with him.
Yes.
He does not understand your distraction, yet will he welcome you with open arms if you will but come to him with the certainty of, Father, into thy hands I command my spirit, for I am whole by the direction of your whole mind. Isn't that lovely? Welcome home, traveler to nothingness. Welcome home from the journey without distance. Just as though, just for a moment now in your own minds, you fell asleep, you created all of this nightmare in time, no matter what you think how long that time was. And now, here, sitting in this body, as you have identified it, you are waking up to the truth of whole mind, or you with God.
Yeah. Thank you.
Will this message be broadcast abroad? Dear teacher, you are abroad. You are everywhere. You're always only meeting your own thoughts that you thought were projected out from you. You cannot not meet yourself. Whether it's coming or going, you'll finally meet yourself in the totality of your absolute reassociation of the whole mind with God. Isn't this so?
Yes.
Cannot not be. Oh, what a lovely teaching. Choose again then, Son of God, and seek to our created home. valuable to admit that you are undergoing this process despite all of your so-called previous form association. How valuable to make the admission that it is happening despite all of your proclamations of your determination to find it. As formers seek and don't find it, you have come to realize that the spiritual path is nothing but an obstacle that you have established to keep yourself from being whole. Oh, is that lovely to know? Indeed it is. The falsity need not be in the idea of the path, but rather, as Jesus would say, how long is it since you have invented time? And in fact, never left heaven. You're actually not. Who will then hear this message? Everyone. We have segmented a particular time-space association into which you have entered. Yes. And of course, Jesus says this is a well laid out plan now to harvest these emerging thought form associations. You need only then come into this cadre of light, stand still, and declare your relationship with God. Wow. I promise you, you'll spring into heaven. That's exactly what the Course teaches. You cannot do otherwise, but the decision not to do otherwise must remain yours.
Yes.
Good. Time is a sleight of hand. This is what I just said to you. The time that you are doing this is inevitably the time that you did it, since this is all over.
Yes.
That you cannot know this is the time that you did it till you see that you have done it.
Yeah.
Those of you who are going to see the video, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Discover that this is a Socratic adventure taken on by perceptual mind in its attempt to declare itself to have free will and still be a predestinationist. Where obviously Jesus teaches total predestination and then gives you free will to be contained within the inevitable destination of yourself, which to you appears to be a denial of free will.
Yeah.
Jesus in the Course simply says you cannot choose to die, you can choose anything else. Okay?
Yes.
So you cannot obliviate yourself. Okay. How simple then is salvation? Simply include all of your former self that you had denied in with your whole self. How valuable then is forgiveness? How inevitable is the necessity for forgiveness, since you are being attacked by your own thought forms. Wow. Welcome home. So you stay in this bright light now. Okay. We are teaching transformation to light. Physical, literal, physical transformation. The emergence of new man. Wow. By not holding your body static in its previous thought forms. This is the workbook of the Course in Miracles, isn't it? Okay. All of the quantum association, the inevitable whole association of your own cellular memories, okay, will pitch into later associations of time, because they're no longer held by the constriction of your limited sequential mind. Yes. This is how valuable the workbook is to you, I'm going to say. Don't bring yourself into the situation, and the situation will become whole. This is what we just said. This is the time that you chose.
Yes.
It cannot not be so. Jesus teaches, simply wait here a moment. Release your own necessity to project from yourself. Lose your busy-mindedness to hold yourself in thoughts of sickness and death. Watch what happens with this new mandala of reassociation which we term circle of one. Enter into that as you inevitably have done, and you will spring into it. Our time is very short now. When I speak at this level, it's easy for you to see that you have entered into this relationship.
Yes.
Our time is indeed becoming shorter and shorter. I am very close to speaking the unspeakable,
Yes.
which is the point of transformation. Of what else I cannot speak. When Jesus handles this in the Course, he said, I cannot speak of that, but I can show you to the point of the own exaltation of unity mind. This is what I just read you, that